Aloha Foilers, welcome back to another episode of Foil the World podcast with your host, Brian Finch. Today's special guest is Matt Elsasser. Matt is a water sport athlete with extensive experience in kite surfing, kiteboarding, surfing, and of course, foiling, specializing in tow foiling, large waves at that, prone foiling, downwind supping, and parawing. Matt grew up in Oregon and Maui, splitting time. His wind sports started at a very early age with his family in the gorge. Matt was he still resides in the gorge to this day and is one of the Hood River locals. Matt is a former Lyft employee for many years, a team rider with Lyft as well, and content creator, and just a great videographer and storyteller. His content is second to none. Matt is also a founder of Hydrocraft Systems, a new brand launching based in Hood River with connections to Maui, team members from both locations. This was super fun, super interesting conversation. Matt is a wealth of knowledge and was very gracious with his time. This was not a short episode. We got into a lot of things. Stick around, and we start off the episode with his adventures in Brazil, the tidal bore, fascinating stuff. If you enjoy these episodes, please like, share, subscribe, rate it, comments. It all helps so much to help this podcast grow and support the show. Thank you. Matt Elsasser, welcome to Foil the World podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I know you've got some big news and big moves here in the foiling world. But before we get into I'm this is almost selfish. I really want to hear firsthand about two of your adventures specifically, and then we can get into a bit more about you and the Hydrocraft company that you founded and working on. The first one is the Pororoca. I've seen that wave since I was a Grom when guys were surfing it. It's burned into my mind, those early images, and even the Seven Sisters in Indonesia and these crazy like river standing or tidal bore waves. They're just wild. I would love to hear like what's involved getting there, the dangers while you're there, the feeling of the wave. Give me the rundown. I'm just dying to hear it.
Yeah. I love talking about Pororoca. I guess the genesis of that trip came from, I love watching the Dylan Graves Weird Waves episodes that Vans was putting out. And now I think Dylan just kind of does them himself. But feel like foils are kind of the ultimate craft to ride these kind of different weird waves, and was looking at different tidal bores, and there's a guy named Sergio Laus who is kind of like the tidal bore king. I think he's been to pretty much all the tidal bores around the world. He's a Brazilian guy and typically surfs them. And he got into foiling, was messaging myself and Brian Grubb about the wave. And
He's hit me up a while ago, and I was like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm pretty adventurous, but that one looked intimidating.
No, it's riding the wave is actually not super sketchy, I would say. The sketchiest part is getting up to the top of the wave in the morning or whenever the tidal bore is happening. But when we were there, it was lining up where it was like we would start riding the skis in the dark up this river to catch the bore as early as we could at sunrise. But what you don't realize is you're riding up that river at dead low tide, and it is shallow in there. So you're riding with guys on skis that don't necessarily speak the best English. and you're going 60 miles an hour on a ski in the dark and like 2 inches of water dodging sandbars. But yeah, the second that wave starts marching down and you see it for the first time, it's pretty crazy.
Is it
Uh,
loud?
and the
Is it loud? All
You can
that water
definitely hear
coming.
it. Yeah, you can hear it. You can hear trees breaking. Um, I think that's mainly what you're hearing is like how that wave's interacting with the shoreline, and depending on where it's coming through, it's uh, making different noises as different trees are snapping off. But the cool part is, the wave. We were riding it for about 2 hours every day, and it goes so far that I think we were riding it for, I don't know, 30 something miles a day. But as it meanders through this river, there's all these different sandbars, different spots. Like the Wall of Death is the name of one spot, which is a really sick right. And then it would turn and be a really sick left. Uh, and so Brian Grubb and Sergio and I were just, after I think we rode it for 4 days. And after like day two, you're like knowing when to save your energy. You're like, oh, really sick section is coming up here. Uh, Hang tight. Don't waste your energy here. And it's ridiculous. I've been, everyone that I talk to about it, I tell them, you got to go, especially if you are a person that is busy with a work schedule and you want to get the best foiling of your life. There is there's no other waves really in the world other than these tidal bores that you can forecast based off of a tide and the moon cycle. So I can go right now and know that it's sometime in March or whenever the next big full moon is there, it's going to be firing. I can show up there, and unless there's some sort of crazy wind or rainstorm or something, it's guaranteed that that wave is going to be happening at a specific time, and will be firing.
For
So
how many days do you get out of it per full moon cycle?
I think it largely depends on what the moon cycle is like, and I'm not really a total expert on that. Sergio, if you get a hold of him, he will just dial you in with everything, tell you when to be there, have the skis ready, pick you up from the airport, and you're off to the races. But I think typically, to answer your question, it's probably like 4 or 5 days.
Right. And yeah, at 30 miles a day, I'm pretty sure you're spent by the end of that stretch, huh?
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous foiling. Best foil wave I've ever been to. And I'm sure, the Bono and Indo and some of those other tidal bores are equally as insane. I think India maybe has one of the sickest ones, but probably the dirtiest water. But yeah, I think the Pororoca in Brazil and the Bono and Indo are probably the two easiest ones to get to, or there's people that are dialed in on getting you foiling those waves. And I highly recommend people check them out. Definitely go with a small crew, because there might be 5 or 6 waves stacked behind the first one, but the first one is really the one. And so whoever you're with, you're sharing that wave with, which was fun. Brian Grubb and I had a week of like pretty much just learning how each other are riding, where we're going to go. He was goofy, I was regular. So when a right came, I would kind of take it. When a left came, he would get in front. But it was like fighter jet pilots flying together for a week. It was sick.
Just dream
But yeah,
weavers, huh?
yeah, you gotta, like, it's one of the most incredible things in the world. You gotta check it out.
Were you worried at all about those wiener fish, the kendiru? Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about? Apparently,
yeah,
it's a
yeah, yeah. When I
myth.
show, well, those are in like the proper Amazon River, which that bore is no longer working as well as the one that we were at.
Mm.
But I did. I did show up with a condom and tell Brian Grubb that he was probably going to need to wear it to keep the wiener fish out, uh, just to fuck with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was no wiener fish where we were. There were some gators or crocs or something.
What's the threat
But
level
I
of
think
the wildlife while you're in the water?
uh, I was honestly less worried about the wildlife and more worried about sandbars,
Sticks and
because
logs and
it does get so shallow in some of those areas, and that wave is moving so fast that you're cooking. Like, that's another thing we should talk about, is the power in that wave is very different from a ocean wave. It doesn't look like a huge wave, but we were riding like 100 surf V2 front wings the whole time. So pretty small front, you know, 6 or 7 aspect ratio front wing that's turny. And that wave, even when it was going through sections where it would be knee high, would have plenty of power for that wing. So it moves fast. It's got a lot of power. And then it's coming through these sections on this river that you don't really know that well, and it's getting really shallow in certain spots, and so you don't want to fall off and hit a log or who knows. The main thing is you just don't want to fall off, because then you have to like get picked up by the ski, race around the front, towed back up.
how
So
hard
yeah,
is
the
that?
wildlife was.
That like that process of eating it, getting the ski, catching back up, is that, are you missing minutes of the ride or 15 minutes of the ride? Is it tough to
It,
get back in position?
no, I think you're missing maybe a couple minutes of it if the ski, like if you have 2 riders, 2 ski drivers, or maybe 3 riders and 2 ski drivers, they can get to you pretty quick, whip you around the front, and start again. That is if you're, competent tow foiler, and can, sink the board and go immediately, just like you would in the surf. If you're like struggling to get up, then it's going to be a bit of a, probably one of those like nightmare situations where you see the most epic conditions ever, but you just can't fucking get on it.
Right.
Uh, so, but yeah, if you're a competent foiler and can pop up behind a ski quickly, you're not going to miss too much. And honestly, there's sections of that wave that go a little bit flat where you're just kind of milking it, where we would just hop on the ski, drink some water, and race up the river to get to the next spot, and just like drink a Gatorade and wait for the wave to catch up to us and like hit a perfect section, and we'd be all ready with the drone and everything. So
Right. How tricky are the logistics of getting the drone footage when everything's in motion like that?
uh the drone footage, it's definitely tricky. I would say filming it in general was tricky. We brought our friend Miles Cameron to film that project, and that was kind of his first time filming a foiling project. And on top of that,
Just give him the hardest
he
mission ever, huh?
yeah, he was like, "Well, what should I bring? Should I bring this camera? Should I bring this drone? Should I bring this? Should I bring that? Like, what's it going to be like shooting from the ski?" And we talked to Sergio and got a little bit of insight, but still didn't really know. And, we had 2 skis. We had 3 people foiling, Brian, Sergio, and myself. And then we had Miles trying to film off of one of the skis. And between like picking people up, people falling, racing ahead, there's definitely a lot of spray going. So ultimately, he ended up just keeping a small camera in a dry bag and stuffing it and pulling it out of there. And then he had his drone also in there. And we didn't really start flying the drone until I think day 3, when we really knew the river well and where the best sections were. And then we could kind of line it up like, all right, we definitely want to shoot the drone on this section, Wall of Death with the trees in the background. So the night before we were kind of going through it all, you're going to go up here with Sergio, launch it, and then fly off the ski uh, while racing with the wave, and then land it again. But yeah, I mean, if you've ever landed a drone off of on a boat, it's pretty tricky, let alone a jet ski in a river where we're trying to like land it and race to the next section. So it was pretty full tilt. I think if we went back again, I would have a lot better idea of how it all works and
Right.
could make things a lot easier on the filmer. But that time we really had none of us had any idea really what we were getting into other than seeing like a couple of clips of it in the past.
You're saying it's a lot more powerful than it looks. Obviously, there's like a billion cubic feet of water pushing into a river mouth, whatever, you know, those numbers are. What's the wipeout like if you go down?
Um, I don't remember the wipeouts being too bad. I remember it being a little bit different in the fact that when you fall, you're really being swept with it. It's not like you fall, go under it, and just like pop out the back. I kind of remember going down and just getting swept with it for a while, and then you pop up, and it's like behind that first wave. I think is 6 or 7 waves that are kind of all over the place. Um, not This wasn't like terrifying hold downs. I suppose you could get maybe connected with a log or something that would be fairly dangerous. But as long as I fell and the water was deep enough, I felt pretty good.
Right.
I was really, like I was saying earlier, I was mainly nervous about hitting those sandbars because it'll go to like a foot deep. And if you hit one of those going, I don't know, 20 something miles an hour on a foil, it's not going to feel good.
Yeah.
Land on your neck or something. So, but yeah, the wipeouts weren't crazy. The foiling I felt was pretty, I mean, just dreamy, perfect. The scariest parts were, yeah, getting up that river in the dark on low tide on a jet ski going as fast as you can, and then coming
My
down and try. Oh, go for it.
just gonna interject. My old tow partner in Costa Rica was blasting out one of the rivers, heading out to the estuary mouth one time, and hit a sandbar, and the guy behind, like riding on the back, broke his teeth out in the back of his head because they whacked a sandbar. You know, hauling ass going out. It's a serious danger. Hitting the bars,
it,
sketch.
it can definitely happen, and that would be yeah. That spot in Brazil would be a very easy place to do it because there are parts where if you don't know the river like the back of your hand, it goes from a couple of feet to a couple inches real quick,
I'm
or
sure it
just dry.
shifts too. Yeah, shifts throughout the year and whatnot.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting talking to Sergio. He kind of, I think when we went, we were maybe halfway through their main season for it, and so he had an idea where the best sandbars were, but he said every cycle uh, it changes, and so the sandbars in that river are constantly moving and improving or getting worse. So it's a constant uh, adventure, kind of trying to find where the 6 spots are, and then you find them, and it's freaking mind blowing.
The footage is so unreal. It looks just so insane. This brings us into another adventure, very unique wave that also blew my mind watching. Is that spot in Canada? I forget the name. Maybe we don't name it, but it's that standing river wave, and that thing. I think a lot of people think is tame, but it looks super dangerous, powerful, and I'm imagining a wipeout there could be fairly intimidating.
Yeah, that wave is a totally different beast than the Pororoca. It's funny, everyone thinks that wave is in a river, but it's actually in the ocean in a sound up on the Sunshine Coast. in
Oh,
BC,
someone's
and it's
totally steered me wrong. someone,
it's a,
someone was trying to throw
a
me off.
no, it looks like a river, but it's actually uh, a incoming tide that causes that. So it's up in that part of Canada. There's a lot of these different little narrow areas where a ton of water is pushing through. So um, as that tide comes in and fills up those sounds, it pushes a ton of water through there and creates that rapid. So it only happens again on special tides, um, but a totally different phenomenon than like a tidal bore wave. This is much more like a standing rapid in a river. Um, and as that tide comes in, it gradually gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it is pretty freaking gnarly. That one we went up to because of one of our buddies here in Hood River is a great kayaker, and that wave has been famous in the kayak community for the last, I don't know, 30, 40 years.
Shout
They
out
surf it
Isaac.
on their,
He's
yeah, on
gnarly.
their
I've seen
kayaks.
his
Yeah.
videos, dude.
Yeah.
He's charges the kayak. It looks crazy.
Yeah. So Isaac was stoked on the Pororoca video, and I was telling him that we wanted to do more stuff like that. And he was telling me, I've got this other one up in Canada that I think is doable. And he was sending me videos of it. And I actually found a video of a guy trying to subfoil it like 10 years ago on the Cabrina double agent, like kite foil. He didn't have any success, but he tried. So he was definitely the OG to give it a whirl. And when we went up there, we really did not know if it was really foilable or not. I brought like a 24-inch mast and all sorts of different gear to kind of feel it out. And that first day, we got the ski out there. We started feeling it out, and as it got bigger and bigger, uh, it it kind of turned on for foiling, and we're like, oh shit, this is definitely doable. Now we started getting some fun rides. It's extremely turbulent and really hard to ride. Like the Pororoca tidal bore wave is a perfect wave and super easy to ride, and I would recommend everyone goes and rides it. This one up in Canada has moments of being really nice when like a glassy sheet of water will flow through, but most of the time it's pretty freaking gnarly and really bumpy. And behind the wave is a class 5 rapid that has these giant vortex holes in it, where if you get sucked down into, it's pretty scary. Brian got kind of driving the jet ski there was probably one of the most fun things. It's almost more fun than riding a wave because you're like in these rapids flowing with it, trying to pick your buddy up. But I was pulling up to Brian one time after he had fallen off, and he is like, I see this big vortex coming to him basically, and he just floats right into it, gets sucked down, and I just see him kind of disappear. And pops up, and his face was freaking white. Like he wasn't down there
Just
for long, but his eyes are big, and he was,
I
get me the
bet.
fuck out of here. Drag him up on the ski and got him out of there. And after that, we were really like, all right, don't, like, we kind of, again, as you're there for a few more days, you start to dial it in. And it's like, if you fall, you know, there's places you are okay falling, places you're not. And let's, you know, try to be a little careful on not falling in the middle of the rapid and going all the way down the thing, because it's, I don't think you want to do that too many times. Get away with it a few times, but you don't want to be floating through that rapid all day every day.
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah. What was the dude's name that did those waves? You had mentioned it in the beginning of the show. I just blanked. That
Dylan
inspired you.
Graves.
Yeah. So Dylan
Yeah.
Graves. I think it was from one of those. He was talking about how hectic the wipeouts were from one of these. Maybe it was in Colorado or some rapids, and he was just
Yeah,
saying, yeah, it looks head high, but the beatdowns are horrific. You get held under and just pinned for quite a while before they'll let you up. And yeah, scary.
yeah.
That volume of water moving so much different than the ocean. You get that huge flush, and then a little backup time, and then another one. But in the rapids, it doesn't stop. It just keeps going.
No, didn't feel that crazy scary in the moment. I would say the first time you float through it, you're a little like, oh, what's this gonna feel like? And then you kind of pop out the end, and we had a life jacket on and stuff, and felt pretty good about it. And then I thought we were being relatively safe that whole time. Uh, and then I came back to Hood River, and there's obviously a lot of world class kayakers here in White Salmon. And a few times I was out to dinner or something, and one of them would come up and be like, "Dude, that I saw that video of you guys foiling up there. Like that place is fucking gnarly. I'm glad you're okay." And then they would tell me like a horror story of someone floating through there and being underwater for 2 minutes or something.
Oh,
So that
yeah.
kind of freaked me
Not
out a little bit
recommended.
more. Going into it, I was a little less nervous about the safety consequences. I think now if I went back up there, I'd probably think about it a little more, just based on hearing stories of people, really talented kayakers, having scary stories there. So
Bit of ignorance is bliss
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah,
I've had a few of
exactly.
those adventures where you look back, you're like, what was I thinking? If I knew what I knew now, would not have done that.
Yeah,
What's your
exactly.
likelihood of going back up and have another stab at that thing?
Um, that's a good question. I have another 3 or 4 waves that people have told me about, or I've kind of seen online that I want to check out in other parts of the world. Um, Going up there is not probably on back up there is not on the top of my priority list. I would honestly go up there, just hang out and rent a house there with a dock, and you can bring the ski and you can ride the wave for maybe an hour or two a day. And the fishing and just that part of the world is beautiful.
Yeah.
So I would be stoked to hang out there. I don't necessarily know if I want to go through the process of shooting another video there and like
Yeah.
riding it all day long.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's not. It's like I rather do a. It was fun because it's exhilarating, and we didn't know what we were getting into. Sorry, my dog is banging on the door. Come here, Joss.
All good.
Uh, it's fun because it was exhilarating. We didn't really know what we were getting into, and there was moments where the riding the wave was insane, but there was also a lot of moments where it was kind of tricky and pretty bumpy and a little bit scary.
Sounds like a risk reward equation there.
Yeah,
Um, have you ever been to the tidal bore in Alaska?
I have not. I've seen quite a bit of footage of it. Um, it looks cool. I've There's a guy. Man, I'm blanking on his name right now. But he spends a lot of time in Maui, and he lives up in Alaska in the spring and summer, and he foils it a bit. Um, I think it's a little bit shallow and small for foiling, maybe, so a little tricky. Um, could be wrong on that, but I think it's from talking to people that have been to a lot of tidal bores. I mean, obviously it's beautiful. It's up in Alaska, but it's not one of the like marquee ones. I think
Right.
the top ones are like India, China, uh, Indo. and Brazil, with Indo and Brazil being the easiest ones to just go and hit. Like the one in India, I think you need to take a lot of medications and prepare yourself to potentially
Right.
get really sick.
Right.
And you have to find a jet ski or a boat there. And then China, you have to have a lot of permits. Um, so I,
There's a that one in England looks like really playful.
yeah,
I
the one
forget
in
where it is,
England
but
looks cool. The one in France looks cool. I mean, I would love to check more of them out for sure.
yeah, they're just so unique. Yeah, I'm pretty fascinated. I've never done any of those trips, but yeah, it looks amazing. Appreciate sharing those uh those experiences. It's insane. I've watched all those
Yeah, you
videos like
gotta
so many times.
you gotta go to one of the tidal bore waves and just Indo or Brazil or wherever. I mean, you listen to Alex and Mr. Bennett's after they went to the one in Indo. They, I think, felt the
Freaking
same thing that Brian Grubb and I were feeling from our first trip, which was like, this is the holy grail of foiling. These are insane. So yeah, you gotta go do it at least once, and maybe treat yourself once your shoulders healed up.
right. Yeah, that'd be a good one. Get back in. Um, let's see. So was it early this year or last year? You made an announcement that you were leaving Lyft to do something new and left the foil world there hanging for quite a while, and everyone's wondering where's he going? Is new sponsor new? What is he quit? Like what's happening? And result that you founded the Hydrocraft brand.
Yep. Yeah. I left my position at Lyft. Um, I guess almost around this time last year, and just wanted to take a little bit of a break and see what I wanted to do next. And ultimately, I took a few months off, and the foiling didn't stop. You're still on the water every day, and ultimately, kind of the right crew of people started coming together, um, to build a new brand, and it was hard to say no once the crew kind of started formulating. I was like, man, I feel like this is a hell of a team to do this with, and have a small crew, but people I have a ton of respect for and think do an amazing job. So being able to start Hydrocraft has been a big project where you get a little bit deeper every day. I think in April or so was when I really committed and started forming the LLC and talking to people to bring a team together. And you make the first step, and then every step uh, you make past there, you're a little deeper and deeper in. But it feels really good. I'm excited about the products that we've been developing. They're riding really well. The team is working together really nicely, and I feel like there's a great opportunity for us here, and been having a lot of fun doing it. And I think it's cool having a group of people where everyone's kind of on the same page. I'm sure you know we'll have differing opinions at different times, and we do on a small scale all the time, which I think is good to have that collaboration. But the general genesis of what we want to do as a brand, everyone is on the same page and kind of known that since they jumped on board. So um,
What's the
it's fun,
ethos
man.
behind the brand? What's the driving force there?
Yeah, I think the driving force for me is a couple of things. One, what I think will ultimately make the business successful in the long run is delivering the best product and the best experience at the best price to the customer. Is really what's gonna make it tick. Of course, there's a side of it. Uh, I think the way brands are structured in this space, a lot of the smaller brands lately have been able to be a little more nimble and move quicker. So for us, we want to be small. You know, we have essentially a 5-man team at the moment. Um, and we want to be quick to be able to develop products. We're going to have our own little retail storefront here in Hood River. So we'll primarily be selling through our storefront and direct, which I think will allow us to develop products a little quicker and get stuff into the market uh, quicker. And our goal is to make great products, be nimble, and tell some incredible stories. That's something I've always been passionate about, and kind of something that's a genesis of some of those trips we were talking about before. But I love having great riders on the team and being able to tell their stories and tell the story of adventure and inspire people to join our community. I kind of look at marketing, I would say, as having uh, three key pillars that at least that we're focused on. That's, how are you drawing people into the sport? So maybe that's a project like the Pororoca project, or these projects that make people stop scrolling on their phone for a minute and be like, holy shit, like, what is that? Maybe they've
Right.
never seen foiling before. And it kind of catches their attention, or maybe it's on YouTube. They're scrolling around there and end up watching a 15-minute foiling video of, Pororoca or wherever, and are mind blown, and it grabs their attention. And then, we're looking to educate people on the sport. So, what are these different forms of foiling? What do I have available in my backyard? How can I get into it? Uh, how do I do these sports? And then from there, it's kind of educating them on the right gear that we're making, and making that a seamless transition, which I think is probably one of the trickier parts of the foil business these days for new people getting into it. Is, foiling has progressed so quickly and we're all so deeply into it that sometimes I think it gets pretty confusing for new people that are on the block to figure out, like, damn, like, what gear do I need
Yeah, foiling
to
went so
actually get on the water?
yeah, foiling went from like no info to like over info overload, like overnight in a
Yeah,
sense. Just the
yeah,
option
just
tuning.
so many options, so much tuning. So yeah, those are, I think, you asked for the short ethos of the brand, but I mean, we want to build great products. We want to inspire people to join the foiling community, and we want to educate them on how to use our products, or any products in foiling, really, to have the most fun on the water. And I think we're looking at it from more of a kind of direct to consumer um, approach, with a smaller, more nimble crew than I guess some of the bigger brands in the space are at the moment, which, both have their positives and negatives. But we're doing this to have fun and run a small, profitable business and build the best gear that we can. So I think you can be a small brand and have a pretty big impact uh, in this space.
How can I ask? How are you guys funding this? I know it's not cheap. Molds pricey. Building, the prototypes. Is this just you guys have an are you investor, or it's just like we're pooling our money, we believe in it, we're going for it?
No, no investor. It's basically been myself kind of putting my uh, life savings into making it happen. Eventually, maybe we'll need an investor. We'll kind of see. I know we can make it through this first year, and also uh, a lot of buy-in from the team that we have in place to, you know, be making less than what they're probably not probably than what they are worth in the open market, but excited about, you know, everyone that's a part of it at the moment has some equity in it, so they're kind of bought into the long term. But without their buy-in, it would be really tricky. You would probably have to have an investor to do that. But I'm not opposed to bringing in an investor in the long term, and that might be an avenue we have to take to scale. But I would
Scaling
say to
scaling is
to start,
one of the
oh yeah,
biggest hurdles of any company, right? It's you go and but then to get to the next level, it's typically how
yeah,
things pan out, right? It's such the crux of growth. It's that
yeah,
tipping point of scaling. Yeah, it's interesting.
yeah. To start, it was important to me to not take outside investment. One, because I don't want to take people's money until I've proven something works. Like, of course, I believe in this mission wholeheartedly, but I also don't want to lose other people's money. I rather make those mistakes with my own money, and I can live with that and know that I put my all into it. And two, I really want to not have, uh, when people have their money in a business, they want to have a bit of control or insight into everything that's happening in the business and why decisions are being made. And
Yeah,
part of starting your own business is the love of that freedom of, you've got a lot of risk, but you also have unlimited potential, and you've got no one telling you what to do when you wake up, which is uh, a feeling
kind of the whole
I
point of doing
enjoy. I like that. Yeah,
your
yeah,
own business in the
exactly,
first place. Yeah, you're not.
exactly.
Yeah, no one's there diluting your vision. Yeah, and you can
Yeah,
fulfill your
exactly.
vision on your own. Yeah, that's so cool, man.
Yeah.
Um, the I was you had mentioned about storytelling, and it's something I was going to bring up later in the convo, but uh, you're incredible at storytelling as a cinematographer. Your content is, top of the top. Like, I've always really enjoyed your films you've made, small reels, all your content. Really, I mean, you're out there downwinding on the river. There's a drone shooting you, but you're mic'd up and you're explaining what you're doing in real time. Where did you learn these skills, and where did that desire for storytelling come from?
Um, Kind of started. I would say, like most people that are into video, I think maybe when I was 10 years old or something, uh, computers were starting to get pretty good, and there was iMovie on the computer. And I remember shooting a little video with my brother and one of our friends on the trampoline. And I think that realization of putting together that video, we're like, oh wow, we can really do this. We can edit a video. Check it out, mom and dad. That was kind of where it started. And then in high school, there were some video classes that we were taking, um, that were in school, and kind of learned a bit there. And then as I got more and more into kiting, um, in the world of kiting, if you want to be a pro kiter and make a bit of money, like, you need to be self-sustaining, as in being able to create your own content. Like, you might be you might be making 10 grand a year, but uh, there's no budgets for videos and stuff. So you're not paying a filmer all the time. So in college, it was a lot of trading off with our buddies. Like, we'd buy the camera gear, and then one of us would shoot for an hour, the other one would shoot for an hour. We'd get some clips, we'd edit them up ourselves, and that would be the way we were creating content. And I think that provided some value to the brands, and the fact that anyone can get a team rider that rips, and you can send a guy with a red camera out to film them and have some great content. I think the riders that really separate themselves are the ones that are able to constantly create awesome content on their own, or with a buddy. And a lot of times, you see two talented riders kind of paired up, and they're switching off filming or switching off filming with the drone, which is what we've done at Hydrocraft so far. Like, that was all shot between Brody and myself. Brody's been injured, so he's been probably stuck behind the camera more than he wants.
He's
But you got to
building up
be,
some filming credits with you.
yeah, exactly. You got to be scrappy in this industry, and it's always been that way since the kiting days. And I think what's cool is there are a lot of people in this industry that produce really high quality stuff, really high quality content, and are freaking hustlers working their ass off. So definitely over the last few years, being able to work with more of those guys and kind of seeing how they do it has inspired me. And it's just, it's it's something I like doing. I like filming stuff. I like editing it on the computer and learning. And I've got a long ways to go to reach the Slaters and those guys of the world that are just putting out insane foiling content all the time. But we're definitely putting in an honest effort to do the best we can and have a nice clean image that kind of tells our story and represents how we want to showcase foiling and surfing and the sports we like to do.
I love the Hydrocraft origin story video you did.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that was your work. It was so good, man. Like, grabbing photos from growing up, and it's really, as you stated, it's 30 years in the making. This is not a year in the making. It's 30 years. Your whole life, kind of the build up, accumulation of skills and experiences and love of the water. But yeah, just a shout out, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't really have any other comment outside that, but just so well done, man.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a fun one, and had a lot of time, I guess, between April and September when we launched that, to kind of think about how we wanted to showcase the brand and kind of announce that story. And so just drinking a few beers and thinking of funny ideas that might be entertaining, and try to give people a little bit of a glimpse into it, that we're working as hard as we possibly can, but we're not some big conglomerate. We're not taking ourselves too seriously here. We're foilers trying to make great product for other foilers, and so we felt that video was a good way to kind of launch it. And it was fucking awesome that people were stoked on it and shared it. I wasn't really sure what was going to happen when I posted it. Like, was it going to get 1,000 views and be a dud or kind of take off? But it got a lot of comments and shares, and a lot of friends and family and everyone reposting it, which was really cool. And felt good to kind of have people's excitement and acceptance and encouragement more than anything. So
I think that speaks to, the quality of human you are and your team, and that support behind you. You know, if you guys are dickheads, that it probably wouldn't have gone the same way. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me a little bit more about Hydrocraft. The name implies that it's not just going to be foils. We got boards. Anything else?
Yeah. The name to me is it's kind of the nucleus of the sports we like to do. By we, I mean myself, my friends, my family. It's not necessarily only foiling, definitely foiling dominate at the moment, but still love surfing, still love kite surfing. And I think our main focus at the moment is definitely foils and foil boards. But I wanted to make sure that the brand is more than a foil brand and can kind of evolve with the future of these sports. Because if we've seen anything over the last, I mean, at least since I've been alive, like there's this constant evolution of different water sports, and uh, I've progressed through, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 of them now in my life to get to this point where now we're like foiling with a parachute. But I wanted the name to kind of encompass a brand that isn't just doing foils and is going to evolve with these sports and really kind of foster a community of people that, you know, are into surfing, foiling, snowboarding, you name it. I think there's a lot of cool technology into in foils and carbon composite work there that is kind of at the highest echelon in water sports. So when we see opportunity to, you know, bring a little bit of that technology into surfboards or snowboards, we'll definitely take that opportunity. We're working on a few surfboards and kite surfboards. And essentially where we see the opportunity to build a product that we feel like can be kind of best in class or fit a unique niche, we'll certainly take that shot. But we're not interested in you know, there's lots of surfboards out there. I don't just want to make another like surfboard sitting on the shelf. So but if there's an opportunity to build a product that we think can kind of lead a class or fit a niche, we'll certainly take it. We're even working on some wetsuits right now with the factory in Japan that makes some of the most badass Japanese wetsuits. So I want to have stuff in the store that is, I like nice things. I don't like things that are for status necessarily. But I want Hydrocraft to be building, you know, the highest quality foils, highest quality foil boards, badass surfboards, and if we can build, you know, a wetsuit that we think is the best that we can offer here in town, we'll do it as well. So
Yeah, I'd be a little concerned if
building
you're like,
toys that we like.
yeah. I was gonna say it'd be a little concerning if you're like, yeah, how do we make the cheapest bullshit and just dump it on the masses, you know, for the highest profit margin. That
Yeah.
intention, yeah, I don't think it ever quite works out. So these are not. It's not a downwind foil company, which I've seen some people speculate. All
No,
purpose
I mean
foiling.
it's yeah, I feel like we've probably, I could see why people feel like, oh, it's just a downwind foil company, and that's probably because if you look at our Instagram, it's all downwind foiling in Hood River right now.
Right. It's a
Which
starting
we
point, though.
haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, we don't really have enough gear, or we haven't had enough gear at the moment to even like really like build out a team of team riders in different locations and get ambassadors and stuff going. So all of our content has been pretty focused on Hood River, and what we're into in Hood River right now is downwind foiling. So it's been a lot of that. But we've got I'll be going back to Maui here in another week or so, and we'll be starting to test kind of smaller tow surf wings and prone surf wings. So we'll certainly, on the foil side, we will have a range of products that'll span everything from wake foiling to prone foiling to wing foiling to downwind foiling. Now, we're not going to be able to, can't really just like flip the switch on that overnight. We got to start from somewhere, and we're definitely starting with boards and foils that are oriented towards, you know, the conditions here in Hood River and Maui, and we've mainly been riding like a 10.2 aspect ratio, kind of surfy downwind foil here in the river.
Yeah,
Test
user
the connection
friendly,
system and everything.
performance oriented, user friendly size aspect ratio. That's what
Yeah.
comes to my
So
mind when I
we're kind
hear,
of,
yeah, 10 is like everyone can use it. It's got performance on both ends. Something you don't wouldn't really, yeah, it's not too niche, but yeah, it's super user friendly.
exactly. We're starting at the core, and we'll expand outwards. And I think if you look at us in a year from now, we'll have a very complete line of products across uh, all the different genres of foiling.
At the core of every foil is the connection system. It's kind of like the heart of the foil. And you guys have a very interesting connection system. So I don't mean to like try and take credit or big up myself, but it's a concept that I've tried to draw out and had an idea of a clamp type system. Yours is totally different than any idea I've ever had, but I certainly believe in the a simple assembly where your threads are not in the carbon and everything's clamping together to avoid a um, monoblock construction you can't travel with. And it's a bitch to even throw in your car. An entire foil is set up. But can you explain a bit about your connection system, how difficult that was to create, and if you can remember all these questions, sorry asking so many questions, and how hard is that to manufacture? Because that was one of my first thoughts is like, oh, that's brilliant. And the second thought is, oh, dang, that looks tough to reproduce at mass.
Yeah. I guess the start of the story there is um, Brody Sutherland, who's our foil designer. He was at Cabrina for years, working on foil products there. So he had the chance while he was there to design a couple different connection systems. I obviously had my experience at Lyft, and Brody has been a good friend for a long time. But it's funny, we would never really go too in depth on foil design or talks about it because uh, we were working for different companies and we wanted to be, respectful of that. And we were competing
NDAs, baby.
brands. Yeah,
Get that
we
NDA in
weren't
between the friendship.
we weren't really we just didn't really talk too much about it. Maybe we'd bounce some things off of each other occasionally, but it wasn't like we were like telling each other, "Oh, this is the layup we're using in this foil or this
Right.
foil section or whatever." But we were great friends, which is kind of a funny thing. But when he came on board in I think it was April or May, um, he flew over to Hawaii and we basically spent a week together talking foils, which was super fun because it was kind of this moment where it's like, all right, I know this, you know this, and then we like opened up the encyclopedia of what each of us knew. Turns out he knew a lot more than I did, which is to be expected. But in that, a lot of the discussion was connection systems, and we had, when he had come over, I had before he came over, I bought a bunch of foils from different brands and was testing them all. I felt like it was an important thing to benchmark, just find a starting point. After you work in a brand for a long time, you might be kind of biased. And when I wasn't working there anymore and was going to start something new, I felt like, hey, let's just start from a clean slate here and try everything that we can and kind of see what we like and don't like with an open mind. So Brody showed up. We had all the different connection systems, foils, and we kind of started going through each of them. And we were going back and forth. We want to do a saddle connection like F1 and Mike Slab style, or do we want to do this, more Tuttle style connection that unifoil and lift and a hand code has. And during that conversation, Brody was like, hey, my dad and I have always had this idea of potentially going through the side. Could be stiffer. Might take a little bit to work out the kinks of it, but we think it could be a stronger, stiffer, potentially better connection. And we kind of went through the pluses and minuses of those different connections and felt like this one solved a lot of them. And we've got a 3D printer, so Brody started printing up just the connection, and he gave me, I don't know, 4 or 5 different connections that were these little 3D printed parts, and so you just sit around kind of playing with those,
right? Foil Legos.
Thinking about what we want to do. And so Brody made some refinements. We went for it. We kicked off the first molds to build them, and we got those back, and then made a few other modifications. And now we're kind of waiting for this next round of samples to show up, which should hopefully be kind of the golden samples. As far as producing it goes, there's a little bit of both sides to it. On the one end, you have a connection that doesn't have any inserts in it, which is pretty darn easy to produce. So I think the front wing and the mast are relatively, for sure the mast. I think our mast is probably one of the easiest masts to produce, because if you have that kind of saddle style connection, typically they're using like a metal inserts molded in there, and it's quite a process to make that connection durable enough. So I think our mast is extremely easy to make. The front wing is fairly simple to make. Where the tail wing connects, I think, is probably a little more of a challenge, but the factory is doing a great job at building them. And I think the biggest hurdle is just getting a factory that's used to building a couple of different styles of connections, and then you introduce a new one into the mix, and they're like, why? Like, what's going on here? Then you kind of walk them through it and explain it, and then they get excited about it. So
is your guys' factory in China, overseas, or in?
Yeah.
So
our
what's
main
interesting
suppliers in China at the moment.
What's really interesting is kind of not blowing my mind, but just something, just an interesting fact is the majority of these folks, these skilled factory workers in China, they don't even know what a foiling is. They're going off the specs, the blueprints, and they've never even seen like a foiling video. They have no idea what they're building. it's
Yeah,
I don't know what
it's
my point was there, but
they
it's just something I
no no
think
they
about every now and then, is just picturing, these craftsmen overseas building something that they don't even know quite what it is, or have a deeper understanding of what it is.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's they are great craftsmen over there. They are super hard workers. They are not foilers, so when you're designing product to be built over there, you really have to make it as foolproof as you can, which involves like, for as much time as Brody spends designing a part, he's probably spending just as much time designing like fitment gauges and all sorts of different stuff just to make sure it's perfect and foolproof, the way they're making it. So yeah, I mean, suppliers are. I feel really good about our supply chain at the moment. I do think as we progress and our journey is to be as nimble as possible. I'm certainly inspired by what brands like AFS are doing with their own factory over in France. I think the dream would be uh, to someday have some of those similar capabilities here in the U.S., because that's what really allows you to move fast. Um, right now, most most foil companies are in the same four or five factories
Yeah.
in China, Thailand, Vietnam. Um, so whether or not we have a full factory in the US, who knows? But we would definitely love to have a facility where we have the capability of building, some really high end prototypes out of aluminum molds, where we can constantly refine, tweak, test, and move quickly. So that's that's more of a long term goal. But in the meantime, most of our most of our supply chain is in Asia as it currently stands.
It's China and Brody's house. The two factories.
Yeah,
Um,
Brody's dad's garage mainly.
when do you think these foil iterations are going to slow? Being a small brand, I hear, what we would consider really large, businesses, companies speak on being small enough to be adaptive and quick to market, and flexible. Right now, we're still in this phase of, every 6 months to a year, brands popping out, major releases. At what point do you think that slows? And yeah, and at what point do you think we slow down and it's just becomes minor definitions, minor refinements versus, these larger leaps? It feels like, the leaps are getting smaller already, but what do you think, Maddie?
I think we'll continue to see gear advance, especially from a material side. Um, I think we've seen that a lot in the last couple of years as higher grades of or higher modulus carbons have been used, which has allowed foils and mass to get thinner and stiffer, and that ultimately makes them more efficient through the water. I think foil design is, I mean, there's still people making advancements constantly, but it's a little slower than maybe it was like a few years ago. And I don't know that it's necessarily slower, but I would say at this point, a lot of people are making really nice product, and there's not a whole lot of companies making a real shitty product,
Yeah.
which wasn't necessarily the case maybe 5 years ago. There were some products that would still be great on today's standards, and there were some that like you'd ride your buddy's foil, and you're like, dude, what? Like,
Get
that
off of
thing's
this
not even
now, bro.
that thing. That's not even really rideable. Like, I can't believe that brand made that. But now, everything that I've tried in the last year or so has been pretty darn good. So I think evolution will continue to happen. And I sure hope it doesn't stop, because usually when it stops is when people move to the next sport.
Right.
But I think there's something about foiling that is something a lot of people are probably going to do for life. At least that's how I look at it. Skateboarding. I love skateboarding. I grew up skateboarding, but not really a sport that I felt like I could probably do for the rest of my life without, getting injured.
That
Which most
that
people would tell me I'm pretty soft. Uh, but I look at foiling and I'm like, man, am I going to foil every day for the rest of my life? I don't know. But am I always going to want to foil and be intrigued by a downwinder? I'm pretty sure I will be. It's kind of got that feeling of surfing like that, where it once it grabs a hold of you, feels like it's probably a lifetime pursuit. And I think the gear has just started, not just started, but is good enough now where um, a lot of people from other sports are getting into it and are really freaking stoked on the experiences they're having on the water. Versus, the surfing world was starting to dabble into foiling in the beginning, and I feel like the gear wasn't necessarily good enough for those real high level surfers to really bite off on it. And now the gear has gotten good enough, and the riders and foiling have gotten good enough where I think these people that are really talented snowboarders or surfers are looking at foiling and getting into it and are pretty excited about it. So I'm still bullish on the growth of foiling and the development in it. And yeah, I think the fact that there's a little bit of stability in the product and stuff these days is good from a business side, because it allows you to really, for as much opportunity as I see for us on the product development side and making great products, I see an equal opportunity in being able to run a business that's potentially more efficient than a lot of the brands out there, and more fine tuned. So that part of it is exciting there as well. And there's a bit of stability in the industry at the moment, it feels like, which is good.
Yeah, it's certainly still a growing sport. I feel like we're just getting started as far as, budding sports go. Do you guys have your eyes, pulse on the assisted foiling category? Will you do like an integrated mast for foil drive, or is Brody working on throwing some drone motors into some masts, or prop kind of foiling in your experience background with lift foils? Is that anything on your
Yeah,
radar for future?
it's uh, it's definitely on the radar. Um, the first priority has been working on non-powered stuff, but definitely watching what other brands are doing, and paying close attention. And I still think I think the future of the assist market is powerful, and it's been, man, a lot of kudos from me to Foil Drive for the way that they've been able to get all these brands working with them, and everyone's got an integrated mass and stuff now. It's crazy. So
It's
they've
such a
done a
great
they've done
onboarding
a
tool to foiling.
yeah
Sorry to cut you off,
yeah
but yeah, it's yeah, it makes it even that much more accessible to everyone, but especially less athletic folks or folks that have less time to dedicate to the water. They can jump on and blast that trigger and get up and foil.
exactly. No, I mean that the 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 e market, e foil, e assist, whatever you want to call it, is certainly one of the easiest ways to get people foiling. Um, and it's a big market, so it's something that we're closely monitoring, and we'll certainly share more info when when we have it. But at the moment, primarily been focused on I don't know what you'd call them, analog foils.
Right. I know
Uh,
there needs. I was thinking about this the other day. Like we need a term for just our normal foils because there's so much other
yeah.
stuff out there. Analog's great. It's kind of an unfair question to ask you. You know, you haven't even like really launched products yet. You guys are still in R&D and getting, building up to it. But yeah, it's not fair to ask you guys like your whole 10-year business plan right out the gate and like, are you going to do this and this and this? Like, hey man, just let me make some foils first, dude. But, but yeah, I was curious how you saw that. And, um, what do you think of, I'm forgetting the name, or do you see efoils getting to a point and even the assist where they're merging into one and it'll be equally high performance with a battery assist that will end up foiling with battery. This is kind of my thesis. I feel like one day battery tech will get so good. I don't know how long how much more tech there is to pack into these small output batteries, but I feel like one day analog foils will always exist. Let's give you the credit. You've just coined the phrase for the OG foils. The analog foils will always be there, I believe, but I feel like there's this merger going on between lifts like smaller high performance, the flight boards pro foiling models that are getting lighter and more compact. But I feel like in some way, somehow, maybe they're just little tiny mini jets coming out of your tail or what have you. That it feels like it will eventually merge into a product that is maybe imperceptible from an analog foil, but has all the benefits of lithium or battery.
For sure. I think probably the best roadmap or indicator of potentially where things are headed has been in the mountain bike industry. Um, E-bikes there started out pretty heavy, pretty clunky. A few years ago, Specialized, started putting these smaller batteries inside the frame, and they almost look like just a normal mountain bike, and they're you know slightly heavier than a normal mountain bike, but still give you that e-assist. And I think more e-bike brands have followed suit, and now you look at like Specialized, Trek, etc. Uh, they have their normal mountain bikes, they have their assist bikes, they have their full blown high power e-bikes with crazy range. So I think the foil world is probably headed in a similar direction. It's been interesting to kind of watch uh, lift and flightboard and foil drive and kind of see everyone took a little bit different direction, I would say, in the last year or so at the assist market, and kind of seeing how that's shaken out now is interesting to watch and fun to see. There's, I think, all three of those products are great products. They all have some advantages and disadvantages, but I think as battery tech improves and gets lighter, the sky's the limit for what this stuff can be. I mean, at the moment, I think most of the weight is really coming from the battery in these setups. Um, so we'll see. Right now, I think lithium batteries in a marine environment is always going to be tricky, and I think that's part of the reason you see e-bikes and some of these products that have lithium batteries being a little bit lighter than some of the batteries that you see in e-foils, because you really have to protect those lithium batteries from saltwater intrusion. It's like
They
the
ignite, right?
lithium batteries and saltwater do not mix. So everyone, I think, is really erring on the side of safety, or I hope they are, which often leads to the battery being heavier. But who knows what the future of batteries is? I'm sure there'll be stuff that's there'll probably be the next lithium that's better than lithium and doesn't have any fire risk. And so yeah, long story short, I agree with what you're saying there. I think we're probably at the dawn of what's possible in this assist market, and I think especially in different parts of the world, people are going to be using them like crazy. Like, it's funny, here in Hood River, I have maybe a little bit. I'll be here in the summer and be like, oh, there's foil drive's kind of dead here, which is because pair-wings and sup paddles and stuff. And now the pair-wing really took a big chunk out of interest in any sort of assist product in the river, because you can just use the wind to get you up and you have a lighter board. But
Costs a
as soon as I
fraction
go back,
of the price
yeah,
too.
as soon as I get back to Maui out at Ka'a, I'm sure there'll be dozens of foil drivers and such. So it's cool to kind of see that these different locations around the world kind of um, are more geared towards some of these assist products, uh, or not. So uh, different strokes for different folks at different spots, but it's all fun to watch and will certainly be a big part of the future of foiling.
My buddy says it, different tools for different fools.
Exactly. That's even better.
Let's get in a little bit about your background, Matt. I was going through your gram, trying to do a little prep. You're a wicked kite surfer, kiter. You're published in magazines and stuff. See you packing barrels on the kite, um, doing really cool like surf tail forward type airs and stuff like that. Um, I'm assuming lifelong surfer, kiter, just water baby.
Yeah, I was born into a family of, my dad was, grew up surfing and then got into windsurfing. Met my mom, got her into windsurfing. My twin brother and I were windsurfing in the womb, uh, before my mom realized she was pregnant. And so, yeah, grew up always on kind of the hunt for wind and surf. And my parents had a business in Portland, and my grandma had a house out here in Hood River. So we were kind of spending all of our weekends and stuff out here and learning how to kite. And eventually, when I turned 14, my parents told me, "You have to get a job. We'll help you write some applications. What do you want to do for work?" And I was always infatuated by the you know kite and windsurf shops here in Hood River. So I was like, I want to work at Big Winds. And so we wrote up an application, and Steve Gates, who's the founder of Big Wins, unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but a very special person. And he called me back, said, I'll give you an interview, went up into his office. And next thing I knew, I was 14 years old working the sales floor at Big Wins, not knowing absolutely anything about really doing that. But I was obsessed with the product. And I knew the ins and outs of every product, and I wanted to ride them all. And I kind of enjoyed the selling part. And through that, I got just more and more into kiting. Whenever I wasn't working, I was kiting, and was starting to meet the different people, different industry people through the shop. I think if you want to work in the water sports industry, getting a job at your local shop and doing a good job is a great way to meet people in the industry. And it's also a place where people in the industry are looking to hire people or sponsor people, are the people that are doing a great job working in those shops. So eventually Cabrina sponsored me, I think when I was 15-ish, 14 maybe, and kind of just worked my way up with them. That was kind of when the whole strapless kiteboarding revolution was happening, kind of right place, right time. And was able to work as a pro kiter, making a bit of money, or at least enough to live as a college kid. Went to school down in San Luis Obispo, California, at a school called Cal Poly. And yeah, that eventually turned into, when I graduated, started working for Cabrina as a sales rep. And then Damien Leroy was working with me there as well. And he got me on to the lift team and kind of worked my way up there. So I guess I've been working in the water sports industry. I'm 31 now, about to turn 32. I've been doing it since I was 14. So I've learned a lot along the way, have a lot to learn still. But this kind of felt like a good next step in like really accomplishing what I want to accomplish, which is, building one of the best water sports brands in the world if we can. That's the goal. And it's been a lot of building blocks to get to this point where I feel, really confident in what we're able to do. But knowing what I don't know, which I probably didn't know 5 to 10 years ago. You're younger, you think you know everything. So yeah, that's pretty much the journey to get where we are here. But yeah, lucky to have a family that was into water sports and is still into water sports, and um, work at a place like Big Wins when you're 14. That's one of the best shops in the world, and um, can't thank Steve Gates enough for hiring me and helping me mature and grow into this industry.
It harks back to your Hydrocraft story, like 30 years in the making. Yeah, it's all kind of an accumulation of knowledge and experience and building up to this. It's very cool. You certainly have the foundation, a very solid foundation to build off, and it's exciting. I'm excited to see where you and the team take it. It's cool. Let me see what else I have on you here. Covered a lot of we've skipped around a bit on some of the stuff I was really curious about. What's your take on foiling contests? There's pump races, e-foil races, prone, surf, the winging.
Um,
it seems necessary. Some of it's goofy now. I know they're working out a lot of kinks, and you have to experiment, right, to build and improve. But I was curious your take, especially in, it seems like we're still so light on like prone contests, just straight up surf style contests, paddle in, get your waves. Um, Formats can be really tricky, especially not having enough judges, having several riders up at one time, riding waves, pumping out. It could be super chaotic. Curious on your
I
take of
think,
the tournament
yeah,
aspect.
I think, I think the contests are great. More than anything, it's an opportunity to bring the small community of foiling together more often, which I think is really probably the number one key aspect of those events is getting like-minded people together and having fun, which is great. I think uh, organizing events, uh, especially in today's world. I think maybe back in the 80s when windsurfing was booming and stuff, you could partner with car brands or car dealerships or whatever and get some pretty legit sponsors to stand behind these events and make it pretty worthwhile. I guess maybe with the way marketing and social media is and stuff these days, it's a lot harder to find those big sponsors to throw these events, and organizing them is a uh, pretty thankless job, I think. So huge kudos to those people that have gone out in the foiling world and organized these events purely for the love of it, which is, um, the races in France, the stuff that Brian Grubb and Billy Bosch have done with the Foil Surf Race
Yeah.
League, uh, Foil Fever over in Hawaii, organizing all the downwind races in Hawaii. So huge kudos to everyone that's gone through the effort to put one of those on. I think it would be awesome to see. I mean, for me personally, I am the most interested. I see the most opportunity in growing the sport of foiling to surfers, snowboarders, uh, wakeboarders, maybe. And that's, the surf inspired foiling and stuff is what I'm most excited about, whether that's downwind or on a wave. That's the kind of foiling I like to see. So I'm definitely would lean towards, hey, let's see more surf foil events. Let's see more of these, downwind kind of expression events, where we're showing some turns and stuff versus the uh, flat water pumping. But I'm also really spoiled to kind of spend time between Hood River and Maui. So we have great conditions here. I don't, have a glassy lake that's flat every day. Maybe I would be more fired up on the pumping
Right.
there. But yeah, I hope there's more events. I think from a Hydrocraft side, we definitely. I don't know if it'll happen this first summer, but I've got some ideas for an event in Hood River that I'd love to do. That would kind of bring a lot of the brands together and riders and have some fun. But huge kudos to everyone that is organizing these events. I guess if you want my hottest take, uh, it would be more on the downwind racing side of the sport, which many people will probably point out that I have not participated in M2O or M2M, so I should probably not say anything about it. But it's been interesting to watch kind of the gear battles happen in the downwind side, and coming from kite racing, there was a lot of years where the gear was pretty competitive. You could have a decent kite and a nice surfboard or something and go to the races and kick some ass. And eventually it turned into this gear war where whoever had the newest Mike Slab foil was the fastest, and they're hard to get and expensive. And it kind of, I'm not going to say the sport of kite foiling is like ruined, but I think it did lose a lot of people that were interested in doing it when it turned into just a gear race with money. And I think we're starting to get maybe a little bit closer to that in the downwind Hawaii race season, or at least what it looks like is, the top 10 guys have this kind of custom gear from the brands that's allowing them to go really fast. And what I worry about that is I mean, you can go that direction and have it more of like an F1 style racing where, there's really only going to be 10, 15 people that are super competitive, and the brands can build them up to be heroes. But if you want to get more people into those races and have a more competitive fleet top to bottom, I think the answer would be to have a very simple gear registration where if you want to race on a foil in July or whenever those races are, the gear has to be registered in, say, March or
Hmm.
April.
Yeah,
And to
that's a really
register
interesting
that
idea.
gear, all you have to do to register it is prove that it is, commercially available. And that
You have
gives
to
everyone the
sub-
opportunity to ride gear that is competitive, and it keeps the brands pushing forward to have the best gear. It just, instead of having that gear in July, they would now have to have it in March. And I think from a brand perspective, I would prefer it, because at least now we have the opportunity to sell some of that race gear into the market, even if
right.
it's 10 foils. At least it's kind of helping paying for those molds and the development of those projects.
What do you think about divisions that with a standardized foil, kind of trying to equal the playing field? Maybe, it's, the group of racers votes on a foil section or a certain design. And then it's tough with rider weights. Maybe you'd have to one section, but in one outline, but you can change the size depending on your weight, or I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe that would
there's
homogenize it and take a bit of the excitement out, but it would maybe boil it down to more skill than access to tech.
yeah, we're definitely not the first sport to go through some of this stuff. Um, and kite windsurfing, or sorry, kite windsurfing, windsurf foil racing in the Olympics. I believe it is all one design. So everyone
Oh,
is on the same equipment. There's different sail sizes and different foils sizes, but I think it's all made by Starboard or Severn, one of those. In kite foil racing in the Olympics, I think they went a little bit different route, which is they did the gear registration route where you have to register it to show that it's commercially available, uh, and then you can ride any of those brands that are registered, and a lot of them end up being on the same gear anyways, but at least it gives them a few options. So I don't know. I think there's some magic in racing where it's right now in foiling where it's definitely helped push the gear forward. People are getting faster. You've got guys like Kane building the stuff in their garage and going out there and winning races, which is freaking badass. And I would hate to uh, put any sort of stop to that kind of magic. But at the same time, I think if you really want to grow the sport of racing and stuff, people have got to feel like they stand a chance, even if they can't be on the fanciest prototype gear. You got to allow them access. Like that 16-year-old freaking up and comer hammer that can talk his aunt into buying him a freaking foil because he thinks he can win the race. Is like, I want that kid to have a shot to freaking win the race and take the foil world by storm. But if he has to be on the latest prototype of some gear that is you know insanely expensive to make, I think it'll kill the racing scene a little bit. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of good energy behind the racing side. I think that the people that are uh, you know putting on these events or the brands and stuff need to kind of work together to make sure that we can keep it as competitive as possible um, for a lot of people, so people keep showing up to them and don't get discouraged.
Interesting. Yeah, a lot of things that I haven't thought about or didn't know, had no clue about the kite racing and standardizing stuff. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. There's one clear answer yet, but stuff to think about, man. There's like just like designing a foil. It's always a give and take. You want a little more of this, you got to take a little off this side, shave a little here. There's sacrifices and stuff to be made.
Yeah,
How are we doing on time, man? Because I still got more questions from you. It's you're
I
a
can.
wealth of knowledge and
Yeah, we can go through a handful more
got
questions.
little bit more. All right.
Yeah.
I'm really curious on as a Hood River and Gorge local, the scene with the growing crowd showing up during the season. Is there a scarcity mindset starting to happen? What's the vibe with the locals and in the foiling infiltration?
Good question. Um, I think, well, there's certainly more foilers in Hood River than there were a couple of years ago, and definitely a lot more people visiting. Um, Recently, last week, uh, Tunnel 4 got
I
a
was going
bunch
to
of
ask you
no
about
parking
this.
signs posted in it. So it's kind of shut down for shuttles, which is a bummer. I would say my general knee jerk reaction would be like, oh man, it's kind of frustrating how many like people there are at the hatch and stuff sometimes now.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I can't say shit because I'm trying to run a brand here, and that brand is harnessed in large part by people coming from out of town. And I think we need to be supportive of people visiting and be as kind as we can to them. That's not to say sometimes you like show up at the hatch after working all day and you're just trying to get out there and it's like packed with California plates. You're like, oh my gosh. But with all this going on, Tunnel 4 gets shut down. People are bummed. I get it. On the flip side of it, the Parawing is like here just in time. Like to be honest, I didn't really go up to Tunnel 4 a whole lot this summer. I wasn't when I was riding in Hood River. I was mainly parawinging. If I was doing downwinders, I was going further out east on the sup and doing longer runs there. So to me, um, it's cool that the parawing has come into play here and allows you to ride upwind and downwind. And I think because of that, there's plenty of launch access spots on the river. Now, the flip side of that is, would Tunnel 4 have gotten shut down if it weren't for the Parawing? I would probably also vote no because the pop up there on the SUP was pretty tricky. And it wasn't really until like foil drive and parawing this summer and like amp jet flight lab stuff that it was like it kind of probably just pushed a little too many people up to tunnel 4,
Right.
versus it used to just be like, I mean,
You had to earn that run.
I,
Yeah, you had to have a certain
back in the
level.
good old days, like back in 5 years ago, there was like, you know, a group of like 7 of us, or maybe a little more. Maybe it was 10 or 12, but it was not. It was not very many. But
Is
it's a super fun sport. It's growing. I like people having a good time, and the reality is, once you're on the water, um, there seems to be quite a bit of room out there. The hatch gets a little congested. I guess, what I would tell people visiting town is like, don't be afraid to explore the gorge and other spots. I think sometimes the hatch can get pretty overloaded. So if you've got a full day to go do whatever and you're here, shit, go check out some spots out east, go check out Doug's, go up to Viento and try a lap from there and end at the waterfront park and have a beer. There's more to life here than the tunnel 4 downwinder. Of course, it's great, but there's a lot more to see in the Columbia Gorge than just the hatch. So I think if people that are visiting check out some of those different spots and can kind of spread out, all will be merry. There's plenty of water to foil on here. So yeah.
okay? Last question. With foil drivers, e-foils. Not a ton, I haven't seen many people sending it downwind with like the true e-foils in the gorge. However, with the parawing explosion and the ability to upwind downwind, is it going to get dicey with so many cross traffic now? So many people coming up and down. The wingers did it to an extent, but when it's really windy, it kind of takes a toll on you holding those wings and like powering upwind to run back down. The parawing seems, I haven't done it, but just paying attention, seems more capable, especially with these new model parawings coming out. Yeah, I wonder, is it going to get dicey with so much up and down? I mean, it's a big
I
playing
think
field, but there are choke points. I don't know. What do you think?
I think at the hatch is probably the one spot that I would say is definitely can get congested a bit with a lot of people flowing different ways. You've got some
Because you
people
have,
riding upwind, you got some people riding downwind, you got some people riding across the wind on
yeah,
windsurfers. So there's a lot going on there. And I think if you're gonna go out there, it's important to um, really have your head on a swivel and be just play on the side of caution. I think if you just assume people don't see you, even if they think you might have, and just like go a little bit extra to the side, don't cut it too close to people. You'll be better off, and make sure like that you know you're in if you're visiting and you're not used to riding in these conditions, like maybe go down to the event site for a session and like make sure you're like in control of your gear and can handle the
yeah,
big gusts and stuff. I think that's really the main time I get a little bit nervous at the hatchery is when there's a lot of people visiting town and they're maybe not super comfortable with those conditions, and a big gust hits them and they like kind of start to lose control, and then they're like coming right at you and it's like a little bit unpredictable. But for the most part, it's definitely crowded out there. But I think, knock on wood, like I didn't have any close calls this summer riding upwind or downwind, and a lot of that is, the way you ride and just giving people extra room and
I almost
not
wonder
trying
if
to
they're
ride too close to people.
right. I wonder if it should almost be like a taxi lane. Like, okay, if you're powering up wind, stick to the Oregon side or stick to the Washington side, something to that effect.
Yeah, I mean there are,
Transit lane, carpool lane.
there are the rules of sailing that take place out there. I don't know how many people are really following that, but I mean the main. It's a little bit tricky. Like the transit lane thing, I totally agree. It's like I try to do most of my tacking up wind more on the Oregon side of the hatchery because the bumps are worse over there. But the
Mhm.
tricky part is there seemed to be more seaweed over there this summer, and there's shallower parts of the river there, so it's a kind of a narrow part of the river there. But I think the best rule out there is like try to make eye contact with people. That way, you're seen and you're seeing them, and it's like, all right, I see you, you see me, and just ride as safe as you can, and expect that people aren't seeing you.
High vis never hurts either, right?
Yeah, 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 for sure. I don't do the
Well,
best at wearing the high vis stuff, but
I know equally guilty there. Well, I got more questions for you, but I won't hit you today. I'm nearly up on 2 hours. Thank you very much, Matt, coming on and sharing your knowledge and experiences. Very excited to see where you take the Hydrocraft systems. Yeah, I'm rooting for you guys and girls on the team. It's really cool to see. I think it's something needed in the hydrofoil world. It's mainly dominant. I worry about uh, foiling being dominated by these much larger corporations that are coming with that kite money, and they don't need to make a profit yet. They have a 20-year, 10, 15-year plus vision, and they're coming in and they're just gobbling up market share and choking out smaller brands. I think it's really smart what you guys are doing, your approach to your brand, and how you're going to operate, and it's cool that you will have that advantage of speed to market and that flexibility. But yeah, all in all, man, really excited to see how this goes, and stoked for you guys. And yeah, thank you so much for your time.
no, thank you, Brian. Appreciate you having me on, and looking forward to having you back in the water in Hood River next summer. So hopefully we'll get to get that wing healed up, and we'll get to share some sessions soon. And good to have you back on the podcast in the meantime.
Thanks, man. I'll work on my wing, you work on yours, and we'll get at it.
Awesome. All right.
Cool. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later.